It's Simcha to have our great friend from Detroit back, Hashem should mention with Menucha and Simcha. V'shis, Chaveri Midim, we have a special guest from the Kollel Yehudis here today. We have to learn something from the Chizuk Rebbe. And V'shis Rabbi Steinfeld Shlita, we walk into Beis Medrash, see Rabbi Steinfeld with a brennan of fire, Man Fastich, Kollel Achecha. Halten doch in the Yemei Svira. Chassidim called the Svira Tag. It's a little akdama before the avoid of Svira. Maybe we'll learn about that next week. A little akdama with his man from Svira. We get finnendach and just to learn something, to learn from a Dvar Halacha. The Magen Avraham brings in Hilchos Svira a special chiddush that a person counts Svira. In order to be Yotze Svira, a person has to be Mevi. He has to know what he said. If a person can't, Rabbi Birnbaum's here on the day of the Simcha. Unbelievable, Shalom Bench. The Farbin. There's a help from the Bezoichet, the Machlis, a song, the Oil of Mitzvahs, because Hashem has a whole Masach.
Simcha,
Shkoya, coming. The Yotze Yechester of the week. So, we find out how Meyuchid Chiddush, the Magen Avraham brings,
Goybel Nafshe is Chester.
The Magen Avraham brings as a person has to be maven. So, a person counts Svira, and you ask him afterwards, what did you say? And he says, I have no idea what I said. I'm not the Yotze B'shul Lev as a Shaila. The person has to know which part is the days and which part is the weeks. That's one Chiddush the Magen Avraham brings. The zweite Chiddush the Magen Avraham brings is that the Chiddush in Svira is up to Shemei HaKohen. In all mitzvahs we say Shemei HaKohen, and here we don't say Shemei HaKohen. Every person has to be safe for a balance here. Great to see a balance. A person has to be safe for, everyone has to say their own Svira. And the question is why? So the idea, Rabbi Birnbaum will say a Shiur on the lumdus of it, but the Ramban says by Svira Sa'imer, the Ramban says in the mitzvah of Svira, V'yazkir cheshboinu. Svira is not a Maisa mitzvah, a Maisa kriya for a person just to say Svira. So Rabbi Birnbaum was going to explain the Beis HaLevi that when Svira needs more than a mirror, and Svira needs by Kol Rom, and Svira needs something, Midaf Hoben Epis in the Svira more than the Amira, is up to Shemei HaKohen. So there's a Chiddush of Yazkir cheshboinu. So when a person's counting Svira,
the Svira believe.
When a person, Svira is belief. Svira is not, it's not a Maisa Amira. A person has to count. He has to count. So a person is counting Svira. To just the Akdama, one of the questions the Sefer HaChinuch asks is, why don't we count down? When the Chos and Kala is waiting, my son is counting to his Bar Mitzvah next to his bed, my son has a big sign, 230 days left his Bar Mitzvah. So when normally a person counts down. The Sefer HaChinuch says a teretz why we don't count down. Another idea why we don't count down is when a person's counting down the derech klal, a person doesn't want to be in this man, Hashem shebenchu. He doesn't want to be in this man right now. Counting down means I want to be in Yena's man. The chiddush of Svira Sa'imer is it's a zman of avodah. Avada, I want to get to the zman of Shabbos, but the avodah, each zman has its own avodah. So the Akdama, before Be'ez Hashem, maybe next week we'll learn about what the avodah, Avada, the Sefer HaChinuch, the avodah, the achona for Torah. But the first yisoid of Svira is Zman. I'm living Zman. I'm living. A person counts out, he doesn't want to be in this Zman. I want to be there. A person's counting, I want to use today to be mechin for tomorrow. So the chiddush is, that's what we count up. So a person is counting today, a person is, I want to prepare myself today, building a building. So the yisoid of Svira, and the first yisoid, is for a person to live Zman. Rav Shanshval Hirsch, it's a beautiful Lashon. He writes, Limnois Yameinu Kein Hoida. A person davens to Hashem, Limnois Yameinu. Listen to this Lashon. It's in English, I learned the Lakewood Cheder, it's a fancy English. All the happiness man is capable of attaining. A person wants success. And Charles Bush writes in a place, society learns, worships success. Every person has one goal, he wants to be successful. What is all the happiness? A mensch will sein, a ish ha-simcha. Was kann a mensch tun? Is the capable of attainment of blissful certainty that has lived all his years and days and hours in loyalty to Hashem. For a person to use his mind, for a person to live each minute in the service of Hashem. And this is something at Tzad HaShavah, by any Erlich Yid or Tzaddik I ever met in my life, tremendously focused. Focus on this minute with a tremendous focus. Limnois Yameinu Kein Hoida. And he writes a Pelligraph, he goes Chishvan Ha'ufa. A mensch weiß nicht. A person doesn't know. The barn cries as a chavrei. My father was there right before he was in the hospital. And he said Keine will nicht weggehen. No one wants to leave this world. And the Eibishter hastes again, darf man gehen. He goes chishvan ha'ufa. A person never knows when the Eibishter decides to take him back to Shemayim. So a person could live his life prepared. He's preparing. Yisrael Salanta said many people's lives is chasnas and bar mitzvahs. So a person is living today, and today he's thinking about the next vacation he's at. Today he's thinking about, Lag Boim, I'm going to go here. This Shabbos, I'm going here. In 6 months from now, I'm going to Eretz Yisrael in 3 months. Look, if it's so slanted, it's not living today. The avodah for Nayid is to live each day. A person would focus. Imagine we live our life focusing on today. Today's Erev Shabbos Kodesh. Today itself has a tremendous amount of hours a person could use. A person focuses on Shabbos Kodesh. Imagine the Chavetz Chaim writes, a person every time he sits down to learn, Dr. Chavetz Chaim, a person has to think, this is the only daf Gemara. I'm the only person that could learn this daf Gemara, and the only time I could learn this daf Gemara is right now. The attitude of living Zman, that success in life, and I saw the Chavetz Chaim writes it, the Oisher and the Oni, every person has the same thing. Every person has one thing, the same amount of time. And if a person that's living his time, focusing, what's the avodas Hashem? What is my avodah right now? Focusing on this amount a person's living. The Chefs of Eved, Rabbi Avsar walked in, very tifa'id, they would explain it in a more tifa way. But what's the Chefs of an Eved? The taich of an Eved means an Eved ein lo izmana. His man doesn't belong to him. He's tachas memshelas bailah. Whatever his Baal wants him to do, there's no day, there's no night. We have the same musik. Rahman al-San, if you meet somebody in a hospital, when a person's in a hospital, he's an Eved. And the taiches, he has they come in 3:36 in the morning, they wake him up, they have to take his temperature. And he looks at it, what are you coming? I'm sleeping, I have no temperature. You're tachas, they're doing you a toivet, but a person's an Eved. A person is in this, he has no zich, he can't say, come back in 3 hours. The taich from Avdus from Mitzrayim is Klal Yisrael lost their time. They have no zman. The Cheres means all of a sudden the zman is theirs. What's the mitzvah? The mitzvah is Sviras Oimer. Hayoim, the taich of Svir is a person saying today. A person's counting tmimis to count this day. You see the Mishabura says, "B'koydem aleinu, b'aylam of tizman, b'koydem aleinu." Zok the Mishabura, the chol kam, it's more tmimis. The minute it takes to say aleinu is more tmimis. One more minute right now. And I mentioned baseness. A person doesn't know. One of the scary things, you go to a base oven, you go to any erlechiyid, you go to a base oven, the derech klal, they say over 3-4, Garfinkel, great distinct. Hashem Shabbat Rabbi Garfinkel. You go to a base oven. A man lived 120 years at Erlechiyid at Tzaddik. An Erlechiyid, his life is endless. Every day in his life at Ovid Gevend the Eivish. There are Klal, you hear over 3, 4, 5, 6 stories, and those stories you hear over and over the same stories. And I mentioned Kenish Wissen. Person never knows. This Shabbos, there could be some story that happens in his house that his kids are going to remember in 30, 40 years from now. Remember what happened that Friday night. I mentioned Kenish Wissen. I heard a story. I met a Yid over here. I told him, one of the Yidden collecting a lot of Erlich Yidden walking around. I told him, give me some chizik. The Rav should be gesund and stark. So the Yid tells me, he says he heard from Reb Hershel Spinker. Someone asked Reb Hershel Spinker, you speak every week Shal Shuddis, you're speaking for 30, 40 years. By the time the Olam made Avdallah, or by the time they finished on the way home from Marav, they forgot the whole drasha. He says, what are you oif to? So Hershel Spinker said, when the chizik, he said a story, he said when he was in Siberia, he said he was in Siberia, and there was one guard that had tremendous rachmanis. You were able to go in for 15 minutes, he let every person come in, they made a cycle. He said in 4 or 5 years, every day they had a cycle, 15 minutes, there wasn't one person that said, it's only 15 minutes, I'm not getting there. I mentioned 1 second a person has an asoyrus. I mentioned Kenish Wissen. A person can never know which asoyrus a person has, which minute. The Rambam says, Rosh HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'zakas es Yisrael. Lefika chir b'lem Torah mitzvahs. Zok the Rambam says a person comes down to this world, his whole life he does mitzvahs. 1 mitzvah. If a person does 1 mitzvah pure, a emes a shleimus dik a mitzvah, a zoichet olam haba. So a person could be a murder kabal stock. and a person gave a tremendous amount of stuff. Every time there was a different Shaloi Lishma. One day, one Sunday afternoon, he mamash wasn't in the mood, he mamash was this. And he gave the money with a pure heart, just for the Eibishter, just to help this Yid. He just got oil money. A mensch can nicht wissen. The Chazon Ish writes that a person can only have a goal that Hashem should bench you. It's a schiyah to sit with a Zayid. The Chazon Ish writes that a person could only daven one tefillah a week. A person could daven the emes of a kavanah. That the Chazon Ish v'li b'yoymali she'eis rotzen lazeh is mincha erev Shabbos. So a person comes into shul mincha erev Shabbos, and a person daven the whole week. He has this cholim that he knows. He has his own difficulties, and a mensch comes one mincha erev Shabbos, and he runs in and he davens to the Eibishter with a reina heart. Can always spoil it. A mensch cannot listen. The attitude of living Zman. When a person comes to Shiur tonight, every Yid has the same feeling. Tonight when he's going to count Shiur, and he says, "Wow, 4 weeks since Pesach. I can't believe it. 4 weeks already." What is the person telling himself? The person's telling himself, wow, time is flying. That's a bracha. People going through difficulties, time doesn't go so quick. But a person teaches himself to live Zman. The Eibishter gives us a gift. Any person, if you ever go visit a chollel, the chollel has one rotzen. If I only could have a regular day like everyone else. And the person that has a regular day, everyone asks the Eibishter, V'arichas yomim v'shonah. I saw it, I think it was Shor Salanta says, to live Shiur. A person goes into a Shabbos Kodesh. It's so easy to have a nice, and a person has a tremendous, he worked very hard this week, a nice fashluf in a Shabbos. It's late Friday night, he falls asleep, once you sleep already at night, he comes to shul Shabbos morning, ganz fashlufin, he wakes up by Kollel for a few minutes, he has a kiddush, goes home, has a beautiful Shabbos afternoon nap for a few hours, and a person comes to Shabbos, he's so tired, another Yid comes, an opportunity. Shabbos Kodesh is coming. I'm going to try to chavrei was I can. Many things that Hasidim said. Many things. I remember I went to go to Tzvi Maya used to talk about the Eish in the Yiddish house there of Shabbos, the Eish from Kas. And it's a simple thing. Mishavura says, that a person should be careful not to get angry Erev Shabbos. So a person looks at Svarim, taking Svarim, the godless. The grace of godless of taking a nap on Erev Shabbos. You look in Svarim HaKadosh and they talk about it. It's a very practical thing. The person knows if I sleep a little on Erev Shabbos, Friday night will be, HaKadosh mentioned Friday night was the time. He did, Sefer Chaim writes, that a person can have Friday night a tam me'ein olam haba, a tam me'nuchnis. But a person has to want it. A person has to have a rotzen. The Eibishter always mentioned, there's also the Chanan came to America, the Chanan came collecting. So they told Reb Chanan was an old friend. His name was Pinchas Wasserman. He changed his name to Philip, I think Philip Gold, he changed his name. And they told Reb Chanan, Asadah Azayid, and this Yid, Reb Chanan was friendly with him when they were young. Reb Chanan goes to this Yid, and he starts talking to him. So the Yid says, Reb Chanan, what do you do? Reb Chanan said, I have a yeshiva, a few hundred bachrim, and the Yid says his whole story. Came into America, I started off with I started off doing some sewing, and now I have a huge company. And they're talking, and he says, Rebbe, what's this little coming? Why'd you come here? Reb Chanan says, it's coming. Reb Chanan comes back again, and the Yid talking, the Yid says, Reb Chanan, Rebbe, what's this little coming? Reb Chanan says, that I came here, I'm missing 2 buttons. I'm missing 2 buttons on my kapota. And I came here, I heard you have a company. Maybe you could help me to put on the buttons. And the Yid says, what says? You came all the way from Baranovich. You came here, I should put on the buttons to Nishmi Stop. The Bukhanim goes up for the Yid. A Yid kumt from the Oilam from Shemayim. The Eibishter sends us here. The person thinks to himself, what am I busy? What am I wasting my time? What's important to me? The Eibishter's always benching his Ozoichazai. Success in life, Zoktiv Shams Hirsch, is one thing for a person to be able to say, I use my time. I use my time properly. The more a person uses his time, the more a person, what a simcha, the Eibishter always benching, is Ozoichazai, so nutzen the Zman soll sein, a Zman von Aliyah, a Zman of coming closer to the Eibishter, the Ozoichazai, a Shabbos von Aliyah, a Shabbos in Simcha, a Shabbos in the Tile, and Vein, and love the chavrei.